Well, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Princess Live Lounge for the next in our Baltic Speakers series. And today we are going to be talking all about the beautiful city of Copenhagen. Now, folks, as you know by now, I don't know too much about Copenhagen itself, but we do have a guest on board who is a specialist in the area itself. So, ladies and gentlemen of the audience and you at home, please put those hands together and welcome Maria. Going over, Maria. Lovely to see you, Maria. Come, grab a seat. Come on, grab a seat. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Excellent. Now, Maria, first of all, you are from Copenhagen, the Copenhagen area?
Yes, absolutely I am. I live actually right next to where the Carlsberg breweries are.
You live next door to the Carlsberg brewery?
I do.
That sounds like the best place on earth to live.
Occasionally they do free tours with free beer.
Free tours with free beer?
Not all the time. But
what time do we arrive tomorrow? Can I come round for tea?
It's mainly in October.
Okay. All right. Now, tell me, have you lived there all of your life?
Well, I've lived in Copenhagen all of my life, but I've lived in Valby for just about most of my adult life. I spent a couple of years in Rome studying, but otherwise I've lived there.
Okay. Are you married?
No, I'm sorry.
Looking for love?
Always. Are you offering?
Oh, unfortunately not. No, unfortunately I am taken. But you never know. They do call this the love boat after all, so you never know. Is this your first time on a cruise ship?
Absolutely.
Your very first time ever on a ship?
Well, I flunked my sailor's exam.
You flunked your sailor's? What? Why?
I flunked the man overboard drill. I permanently lost the man, so the club had to go out and buy a new one.
Oh, okay. So you had like a dummy which they used to put and you got rid of it?
They had to get one with flashing lights so that something like that can't happen again.
I'm sure we could do one of those on board. All right, now we're here to talk a little bit about Copenhagen itself.
Yes.
All right. Now you obviously being from there, you've got an idea of the lifestyle of Copenhagen.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk in depth, I think, in a moment about some of the cuisine. Food is always good in my book. But first of all, just some simple questions about the city itself. What currency do they take in Copenhagen?
In Copenhagen, we use Danish kroners. Now, I know this is an easy mistake to make, but this is not the same as Swedish kroners, Norwegian kroners, or any other type of kroners, I'm sorry. Danish kroners is quite a specific currency.
Okay. And will I assume most of the businesses will also take major credit cards like Visa, MasterCard?
We are very much good with that. Credit cards, MasterCards. There are one or two restaurants that don't take American Express, but if you ask us when you go in, that they will help you with that.
Excellent. Okay. Now, what do you do in Copenhagen?
I am the manager of a small company called the Food Tours, which does walking food experience tours around Copenhagen. We walk from place to place and talk about the history and the food of the city and the culture behind that. I have a picture if I can show.
Yes, so yeah, let's get straight onto the food because I'm hungry anyway, so let's have a look.
That is someone I don't know at all holding up, well, some of the Copenhagen food. That's actually inside our very new and very central market halls, which I do recommend that people go and try, where we sell a lot of the local foods and where, of course, the Food Tours has its starting point.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I was just, I've never heard of her.
Do you know that person?
Not even a little bit.
Okay, we're doing well. Lots of random people. Now, what's the main kind of delicacy of Copenhagen? What's like the most popular food?
Well,
Ooh.
There we go. There are several things, of course, but I suppose the most Danish thing ever to eat are the so-called open-faced sandwiches. I don't actually like that word very much. The Danish word is smørrebrød, not to be confused with smorgasbord, which is a Swedish word and has nothing to do with it. Remember, Danes, Swedes, don't confuse the two. It's not a good idea. So, but smørrebrød are these open-faced sandwiches. They always come on the rye bread, and they are highly decorated, so they are a showpiece. So you'll know when you're in the presence of one, believe me. And there are restaurants all over that serve them.
And they come in different styles, different flavors, so to speak?
They do, absolutely. Of course, there's a whole list of which are the most popular, which are the most normal, and of course, any number of them involve herring.
Herring?
Well, that's rather why we're there. Copenhagen means port of the merchants, and what the merchants were selling was herring.
Ooh. So what do they do with the herring? Is it do they smoke it or
Well, sometimes we smoke it. More normally in Copenhagen, we pickle it.
pickled herring?
Absolutely. In fact, you're considered slightly rude if for a big formal lunch you have less than 6 types of pickled herring on your table.
Sounds delightful,
Yeah.
especially if you like herring.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so on this particular one, the picture you've got here,
Want to
look at
get
those.
some more generalized ones?
Look at those, they look splendid. Are there any particular restaurants that you would recommend or any cafes that you would recommend in Copenhagen for these sort of foods?
Oh, absolutely, any number of them. Currently, the best restaurant in town, that's the official one, is Åmans in Østerfejmarksgade, number 10. And they are a lovely little place. They're a little bit off the beaten path, and they do what is officially the best smørrebrød in town.
Wow.
But of course, if you want the oldest, there's something like Ida Davidson's in Store Kongensgade, which, well, her grandfather, I think it is, was the original developer of these. She even has the longest menu card in the world, according to the Guinness Book of World Records.
The longest menu in the world.
Yes.
That must be pretty long.
It's, last count, it was over 200.
Wow. That's quite a big kitchen she's got to be able to cook all those foods. Yeah?
Oh, I don't think she cooks them all at once, but I think the trick is to come in and go, I want that one, and then hope it's the one no one remembers how to make.
Very good. All right, so what, are they just some different varieties of...
These are fairly randomly different varieties. There's a chicken salad, a roast sirloin, and an egg and shrimp one of these. All the famous ones are usually named, such as the Hans Christian Andersen, of course, the Veterinarian's Midnight Snack, the Starburst.
Very nice. Okay, what have we got? Which slide have we got next? Another
this
person.
is,
Do you know this person?
Actually, this was a lady who came on our tour and was kind enough to pose for the picture. Actually, I brought this picture because I wanted to talk a little bit about our street food. We now have a really big street food hall called the Paper Island Street Food Market. But of course, the only really Danish type of street food is the sausage from the sausage man.
Sausage from the sausage man.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there are 2, which are the 100% organic gourmet sausage man. So, yeah.
Organic sausages.
They're kind of like regular fast food, but good for you.
It's got to be good for you if it's organic, right?
It's whole wheat. It's free range animals. All good.
So you have a street food market, so to speak.
We do have a new street food market. It's going to last throughout the year, and then next year they'll probably move it to somewhere else. But it's not actually too far from where we're going to dock.
Okay.
So it's right across the water from Nyhavn. It's the famous place that we saw when everyone's coming in with the colorful houses and the canal tours.
Very, very nice indeed. All right, have we got any more?
We do. Well,
here we go. Beer.
Obviously, yes, we're famous for the beer. Carlsberg, the Visit Carlsberg Center is always a good place to go, but we have now 271 breweries in Denmark.
271 breweries.
One of the highest concentrations per capita of anywhere in the world.
That's good. Now, obviously, Carlsberg is the main beer that most people would associate with Denmark. Now, the brewery there, they do tours. You mentioned.
Yes, they do. So they are open every day throughout the summer, and they have tours, I think, every hour, and all of the tours end with a beer or 2.
End with a beer or 2, or maybe 3.
Well, that you'll have to go and find out.
All right, let's have a look.
Well, I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of our more famous desserts. I don't know if you know this, but the Danish pastry isn't particularly Danish.
I did hear this, actually, yeah.
It's but we have lots of other things, so don't despair. This is our almost impossible to pronounce flødebolle.
Sorry, what?
Flødebolle.
Flødebolle.
Yes, you did good.
That wasn't bad. It's not bad.
That's pretty good stuff. The flødebolle is sort of like a chocolate-covered soft meringue. They are so good, so delicious. It's what you serve for if you have a birthday. It's what you serve if you've messed up at work.
Ah,
If
so
you
like a
made
peace offering.
Exactly. Then you're supposed to bring this for everyone in the office the next day. And of course, the cheaper versions, if it's a national holiday or something, they often wear out lives as projectiles.
You throw them at people.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
They get nice and stuck and stuff.
Very good.
But obviously, these are some of the regular foods that you'll find everywhere. We also have seasonal delicacies, really interesting things. Our most famous seasonal delicacy possibly is the risengrød, or rice porridge, that we have for dessert every Christmas. I have a picture of a somewhat evolved version of it, with fruits and nuts and everything. Normally, that is served only for Christmas dinner, for the dessert, with cinnamon sugar on top, and with an almond hidden in it. And the person who finds the almond gets a present.
Oh, who supplies the present?
Generally the person giving the dinner, or in my family, me.
That's good. So you could end up giving yourself a gift.
It's never happened as of yet. It always happens. My uncle pretends to have it. He goes looking innocent, and then it turns out one of my cousins has been hiding it the whole time.
So when I come round for Christmas dinner, if I just bring an almond with me?
Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. Someone will argue it.
Okay, let's have a look. We've got some more food.
We do.
Right.
This one is a particular kind of Christmas cookies called in kleine, or a small cookie, which is actually it's super fun to make because you have to twist it, and then it's deep fried, sort of like almost like a donut, but a very typical thing to have.
Very nice. Okay, any more food items that we've got, and then we'll get on to a little bit about the city itself.
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, I really want to try one of those cookies. I'm getting very hungry.
I made those myself.
All right, now Copenhagen itself, it's a spectacular city. There's so much to see and do. A lot of famous architecture, some wonderful buildings to look at. But some of the highlights, if you just had one day as a tourist in Copenhagen, how would you lay your day out? What would be your main highlights of the must-sees?
You mean other than the food tours?
Other than the food, obviously.
So I would probably start the day by visiting some of our museums and famous castles. If you have time for just one castle, just walk past the Queen's Palace and go inside Rosenborg Castle because it has more stuff in it.
Okay.
It was used as a sort of leftover facility for the kings and queens, and it tells the story of everyone's favorite king, Christian IV.
Very nice indeed. And you've the central train station is quite a sight to see in itself. It's quite a magnificent building. Isn't it?
It's quite a magnificent building. It's quite an old building now, about 152 years, 3 years. Yep, at this point.
And one of the major tourist attractions, of course, in Copenhagen is the Little Mermaid.
Absolutely. So as you're making your way in from the ship towards Rosenborg Castle, you would probably pass right by the Little Mermaid. Lots of people think she's huge. She isn't, of course. She's just slightly larger than life-sized. I think she's adorable, though.
I mean, I'll be honest, I thought it was going to be bigger than it was.
Yes.
But it's still something, obviously. If you're in Copenhagen, you've got to go and see the Little Mermaid. Now, the story behind it, no one really seems to know why she's become so famous.
Well, the story behind it, of course, is the story that Hans Christian Andersen wrote, which I think resonates with a lot of people. The idea of the impossible love story, trying to be something you're not, to get a guy and then failing at it. It's an amazingly poignant story for everyone. And Hans Christian Andersen, of course, wrote any number of beautiful fairy tales. The reason for the statue is a little less honorable, I suppose. It was built by, well, it was paid for by beer. Brewer Jacobsen's son, Carl, one of the two founders of Carlsberg, had a long and happy marriage when, unfortunately, his wife died. And he reacted to this by marrying a 17-year-old.
As you do.
Yes, and that went exactly as well as you're thinking. So he started spending a lot of time away from home at the theater. That had happened that year. They were doing a Little Mermaid ballet. And he just sort of fell in love with the whole story, with the dancers, and wanted to commission a statue of a Little Mermaid to sit in the sort of new promenade that was coming up out there. That's why it's sort of away from everything. It was never meant to be famous in that way. It was just supposed to be a little cute item along that new promenade. And, well, in many ways, she became the symbol of Copenhagen just through being one of the few representations of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales actually in the city.
Excellent. So, of course, if you've definitely got time, you should definitely make sure you go and see The Little Mermaid. It's beautiful, especially on a bright blue sky day as well. You get lovely, lovely photographs.
I mean, not only that, but if you have the time, if you have any time left over, I know there's not much to celebrate the life of Hans Christian Andersen in Copenhagen, but in many ways that's quite deliberate. It's also to encourage people to visit, for example, the town of Odense, which is actually his birth home. And that's a wonderful place to visit. They do have his birth home. They do have his birth bed, strangely, intact. And a little park and all sorts of beautiful things out there.
Excellent. Now, in Copenhagen centre itself, you've got Tivoli Gardens.
Yes.
Okay. There was a Tivoli Gardens in Stockholm the other day. But just to explain a little bit about that, is it just a theme park? Or is there's gardens itself?
The gardens themselves are beautiful. I mean, it's one of the oldest amusement parks in the world. We do have the oldest as well. That's Bakken. But Tivoli is just a wonderful place. So if we're talking about that hypothetical perfect day in Copenhagen, I'd end my day at Tivoli at around 6 o'clock, where you go in and you start to see the lights come on. There's a pantomime. There's a little ballet. You see Harlequin and Columbine and all the famous characters doing their ballet. It's one of the last places in Europe you can see this. And if it's a Saturday, it ends with fireworks at midnight.
Fireworks at midnight, just like New Year's Eve.
Well, they used to do it every day, but now they've gotten down to just on Saturdays.
Okay, that's nice. Now, the city itself, is it easy to get around? What's the transport system like?
It's fairly easy to get around. Once you're in there, most things are within walking distance. Copenhagen, the old town, used to be enclosed behind city walls, so big city walls. That means you can walk from one end to the other of these famous places in a fairly short order. If you want to see anything more than that, we have an excellent metro system and a train system as well. The buses work quite well. A two-zone one-way ticket will get you anywhere you need to go within the city walls. And buses and metros leave every 2 to 5 minutes.
Excellent. And once you get off the ship as well, you can pick up the hop-on, hop-off buses.
Yes, you can.
And they will take you to most of the major sites around Copenhagen?
Absolutely. There are several hop-on, hop-off buses, but they will all go to just about everywhere you might need to go.
Excellent. Now, I'd like to touch briefly, if I may, on the language in Copenhagen, because I know from my personal travel experiences, when I visit a new country and a new place, I like to try and communicate in the local language. Not always easy, but just go through some of the easy phrases for us. So, hello.
Hi.
I can manage that one. Hi.
And you can manage goodbye as well.
Goodbye.
As it's hi, hi.
Hi, hi.
It's pretty easy.
Okay, so hi for hi, and hi for bye.
Exactly.
Okay, get in there. All right. Something that's normally quite common is to, if you're buying and you're shopping, to ask how much something is. So how do you say how much?
Okay. You can say hvor meget, or if you want to be a little bit better understood, hvad koster det?
Hvad koster det?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not bad. Okay. And I'm lost.
Jeg er faret vild.
Jeg er faret vild.
Jeg er faret vild.
Jeg er faret vild.
Close.
Get in there, get in there.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So if you do get lost, all right, because it does happen, people do get lost. What would you recommend? Who are the best people to speak to?
Well, I would recommend just asking someone off the street. Most people are quite nice, or if you want, you can always duck into a shop. We do have police officers, but they tend to be less visible in the Copenhagen street scene than many other places. So rather than having to go around looking for one, if you just duck into a shop or just stand around and look lost, and someone will come over and help you.
Very, very good. All right, so just to close then, I'm going to ask you for your, apart from obviously the food, which I know that you're quite passionate about, what, if you could only do one thing in Copenhagen, just one thing, what would you recommend as the must-see, the must-do?
And we're still excluding the food tours.
We're excluding the food for the moment.
All right. Oh, that's a good question. Well, I would have to say, among other things, the canal tours are very good to do.
Okay.
Because it does give you an impression of what is Copenhagen, what are the parts of Copenhagen that are the important parts. Why is Copenhagen where it is, and why has it been an important town? So they take about 45 minutes, and you can get on in several different locations and hop off again. They're kind of like a hop-on, hop-off bus for the water, really.
Excellent. And finally, you mentioned earlier briefly about the famous street with all the different coloured buildings. Just tell us a little bit about that area of Copenhagen.
Nyhavn? Well, Nyhavn is called the New Harbour because it was at the time. It was built by King Christian V, not King Christian IV for once. He otherwise did build everything, and was basically a shipping area. When my grandmother was a child, it was where good girls didn't go. Oh yes, it was a bad neighborhood. All the sailors hung out there, and you know what they do to young girls. So it's changed a lot, of course, now. I would recommend it as a place to go and have a beer or an ice cream. There are lovely restaurants in the area. If you just duck down some of the side streets. Nyhavn itself can sometimes be a little crowded for eating in, but if you duck down any of the side streets, there are lots of very nice restaurants.
Excellent.
So excellent place to just sit with an ice cream, swing your legs over the water, and just hang out for a while.
Sounds delightful. And just finally then, you mentioned obviously your food tours that you do. How would somebody go about booking one of your food tours?
Well, I actually saw them up for sale in your shore excursion area, but otherwise online. And we do have food tours in Stockholm and in Oslo as well.
Very nice. So. Very nice indeed. Well, Maria, thank you very much for your information on Copenhagen. Now, for those of you in the audience, Maria will stick around just briefly after the presentation, just outside the lounge there to answer any questions you may have. But for those of you watching at home, I hope that's been a great insight for you into the beautiful city of Copenhagen, and enjoy your day there. And Maria, once again, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.